Good afternoon, and welcome to the Middle East Forum's webinar and podcast series, Israel Insider, this week with Naveh Dromi. I'm Stacey Roman, and I will be moderating this discussion today. We are pleased to have Naveh Dromi, who oversees the day-to-day activities of the MEF's Israel Victory Project, join us this week to update us on all the events going on in Israel. Naveh will be speaking for 15 minutes and open it up for questions. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And with that, I'll turn the discussion over to Naveh Dromi.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm replacing Ashley Perry that usually speaks at this webinar. I know that Ashley was supposed to speak about the legal changes that might be in the next government. I'll speak about this, but I think that the bigger thing today is that in a few hours from now, or maybe even a few minutes, Benjamin Netanyahu will call the president, Yitzhak Herzog, and will say to him, in Hebrew, we call it Allah b'yadi, I have managed, which means that I have managed to establish a government. I have to say that it comes a bit longer. It took a longer time than what people thought it will take. I remind you the elections were held in November 4th, and we are now at December 21st, which is almost 2 months. People thought it will take shorter time because the government that is being established is all the parties that were in the Netanyahu camp before. They were all together in the opposition, and now they are all together in the new coalition and the government which will be established. And there is a very interesting situation here these days. It's like everyone knows that the government will be established, but there are different difficulties. As I said, it took longer time. All the parties wanted to maximize their success. They wanted to get more. In the Likud itself, there were some arguments between Netanyahu advisors and to some Knesset members, and things weren't going easy for them. And also in the opposition, you can see something very interesting, the criticism of the camp of Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz and Avigdor Lieberman and Merav Michaeli, which are getting criticized from their voters for not doing enough to fight the new laws that the new government want to promote. And I'll explain, and this is where the legal issues and other issues are coming into hand. Some of the main things that the new government promised to its voters is to have a reform when it comes to the legal issues. Voters from Netanyahu camp, of voters of Netanyahu, Smotrich, Itamar Ben-Gvir, and even the ultra-Orthodox parties, they voted because their leaders promised them a reform in the legal system in Israel. This is one of the main issues that is important to those voters. And some of the things that those leaders want to achieve in order to promise, in order to fulfill what they promised to their voters, is some things that the opposition is against. And there is a big discussions in Israel about those things. Another issue that creating a discussion here or even a debate between the Knesset members is everything that will go under Itamar Ben-Gvir, which is supposed to be the new Minister of the Interior, Security. He is replacing Omer Bar-Lev from the Labor. And what he is asking, he wants to have more power in his hands over the police. Today, the Minister of Interior Security doesn't have a lot of power over the police. He can't tell them what to do in many cases. They are kind of a free and independent institution, and he asked to have more power over them so he can control some of the things that they do. To some people, it sounds very reasonable, and to others, it sounds dramatic, because for them, it seems that if he takes more control over the police, then they think he'd somehow that it's not how will I rephrase it? It's not how the situation and the relationship between the minister and the police should be. And there is a big discussion, because those who are pro Itamar Ben-Gvir saying, how can the Minister of Defense can't control the army? Of course he does. He have connection with the chief of staff and they decide things together. And if the Minister of Defense wants something, even if the chief of staff doesn't want it, he still has to do it. It's not the case between the Minister of Interior Security and the chief of the police today. The chief of the police can decide that he does things his own way, even if the minister doesn't accept it. So this is one of the big arguments, and the legal system is also involved here, because you can see that the legal advisor of the Knesset, not all of them are working or loving this change that Itamar Ben-Gvir want to do in the power that he has as Minister of Interior Defense. So when the coalition, the new coalition that is being built, trying to promote the laws and the reforms and the changes that they want to do, they have problems not only with the opposition, but also with some of the legal advisors who are against those steps. And now the question is, if they will do it even if the legal advisors doesn't like it, or if they will listen to the legal advisors. Of course, there are different, from outside the Knesset, there are legal advisors that saying that this is what Itamar Ben-Gvir should do, because the fact that he doesn't have any control over the police, it's kind of grotesque. So as I see it, I think that in the end of the day, Itamar Ben-Gvir will manage to do this change. He will be able to promote the reform that he wants to do, but then he will be in a problem, because once he did this change, everyone will look at him very closely to see if things are really getting changed. And I think the main issue that will concern the people, not matter if they are right or left, Jews, Arabs, it's everything that consider the violence inside the Arab society, which is suffering from a very high violence between the crime organizations. Only yesterday, 2-year-old boy was killed. There was a big storm in Israel about it. Ministers, the chief of staff went there. There is a huge problem in this in Israel. And if Itamar Ben-Gvir managed to do these changes, he will have to give answers to everyone in Israel, not just the Arab Israeli society, but everyone. So it's a bit tricky, the reform that he wants to do. In the opposition, beside the things that they are trying to change with the coalition that is being built, something interesting happened yesterday when some of their voters wrote posts and the articles saying that they are very disappointed from their leaders, those who are still in their job. They are still ministers, but their voters are disappointed because they expected from them to be more vocal and to stand more for the changes that they see from the upcoming coalition. And you can see that their leaders, Yair Lapid and Vladimir Beliak from Yesh Atid, mainly Yesh Atid Knesset members, are reacting to this criticism and saying that they are against the reform, they are against the changes. And you can see that the voters of their camp are not satisfied with it. I'll give you an example. There's supposed to be a vote about Ben-Gvir new reform. And instead of fighting Itamar Ben-Gvir and the law from the eyes of Yair Lapid voters, instead of fighting these laws and the changes they want to do, they got to an agreement between the new coalition and the new opposition that the votes about Itamar Ben-Gvir new law will be on agreement hour of the day, which will mean that it will pass in the end of the day. And their voters wanted to see a filibuster in the Knesset. They wanted them to stand there all night and read, so the vote over the laws will take time. They will postpone it. And from their point of view, it seems like the new opposition is giving up. It's not fighting their fight. And it's interesting to see how from their eyes, they're doing the completely different. There was a discussion in the Knesset this week about Itamar Ben-Gvir law, which Merav Ben-Ari from Yesh Atid was there, and other people from Yesh Atid and the Benny Gantz party were there. They sat there for more over than 8 hours just to discuss this law. So just to give you an example of what's going on, from their eyes, the Knesset members of the new opposition are there, they are sitting, they are fighting, but their voters think it's not enough. And in Netanyahu camp, they are trying to build the government for over almost 2 months now. And in their eyes, they are doing the best. They are building the best right-wing government that they could have think about. But from their voters' eyes, it seems like it's taking too long. It's almost 2 months. They thought it will be much shorter. It's not related, but something very interesting that happened today that might point out political things that can happen in the next months is that Benny Gantz decided to not release a body of a Palestinian terrorist to a funeral in the PLO areas. A Palestinian terrorist named Abu Hamid died from cancer in an Israeli hospital. He was sentenced to a 7 walled prison. I'm not sure I'm saying it right in English. And he died a few days ago in the prison. He killed about 7 Israelis and was part of other terror attacks. And once he died, the PLO said that they are waiting for his body to bury it. And once if the body would get there, then they would bury it with a lot of respect and will do a celebrations. And the families of the victims in Israel wrote a letter to Benny Gantz asking to not release the body unless Israel gets something for it, like the bodies of the soldiers on Shaul and Adar Goldin. And today people were kind of surprised to see that Benny Gantz decided not to release the body of the Palestinian terrorist. And it's interesting because everyone speaks about the possibility that in few months from now, maybe a year, Benny Gantz will join Netanyahu government. And the steps that he did today might approve it in one way or another, because it's considered to be something that the government of Yair Lapid wouldn't do, for example. So this is something that we should look at not only in the eyes of the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, but also in the eyes about the political process, because things are moving. People always keep saying that Netanyahu is not completely satisfied with the government that he has. People saying that he is the left-wing part of his government. So things are very interesting. It will be interesting to follow different events which are not, I mean, from the outside doesn't look political, but they are very political. And this event with Benny Gantz and this terrorist body might be one of these events that we should learn from about the future. I hope it was interesting and that I was able to transfer some of the feelings and the events and the process that are going on in Israel these days. I'm happy to answer any question.
All right, thank you so much. The first one is from Murray Feldman. Can Netanyahu control his religious allies, or is it like 1933 Germany? Does Netanyahu have the tiger by the tail, so to speak? If the opposition brings down Netanyahu, the religious group will bring down the opposition.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Can Netanyahu control his religious allies?
I think he does. I mean, I guess it's depends on the person you ask, but it seems like Netanyahu was able to maintain some of the biggest jobs in the new government to his party, to the Likud. And through the years, Netanyahu was able to work with the ultra-Orthodox allies. So I don't see any reason it won't work today.
Thank you. And we've been talking for a few weeks now about what you're speaking about with Gantz and potentially joining Netanyahu. Ashley was speculating that possibly he was holding out a minister position for Gantz. Do you still see that as an option?
No, I don't see it as an option. I think Benny Gantz wants to solve some things inside his party before he goes in. I'm not sure he would like to go in with his entire party to the new government. He might take some of his people. And again, it will take time because the voters of Netanyahu right now wouldn't like to see Benny Gantz in the government. So Netanyahu will need to take some time before he does something like this. And I have to say about the other question, that sometimes the ultra-Orthodox are playing a game. People think that they are very extreme, but they are very, as I see it, as a secular woman living in Israel, I'm not getting afraid from some of the things that they are demanding, because their demands doesn't affect me or my life. And I think that, I mean, for example, in the new agreements, there are some issues which for me it's important, like things that will make it easier for the ultra-Orthodox to get involved in the general public, which is good. I would like to see more ultra-Orthodox in my area, to see them involved in our community and not getting closer in their community. So in this aspect, I think the agreements between the ultra-Orthodox parties to the coalition are positive to the Israeli public.
Thank you. A different side of that, Carrie Hillebrand asks, why isn't there a serious backlash by IDF veterans, parents of draftees, bereaved parents, etc., to the wholesale draft deferments and increasing benefits given to the yeshiva students?
Because there is, if I understand correctly, there is a question about why any military people, former, are not rejecting the benefits to the yeshiva students. Because I'm not sure that the benefits to the yeshiva students are so, again, it's dependent on point of view. I'm not in a position where I think that the payment for the yeshiva students is threatening me. I don't think that involvement of yeshiva students in the IDF is the main problem. I think that we should be more concerned about them getting involved in the public, and it will come not from the army, but from going to the academia and going to work. This is the main issue. And also, you have to remember that there is a lot of criticism in Israel about the pension of military persons that they leave the army in a very, very young age and get a very big pension. I'm sorry, I'm moving because my little kid just woke up and she's joining me. בואי תשני מתוקה, שימי ראש. And so it's not so easy. And you can find people, again, secular like me, that served in the IDF and think that the involvement of Haredim in the public, it's a major challenge of Israel, but it should come from the civil life and not mainly from the IDF.
Thank you so much. Barry Werner asks, we've talked about this quite a few times, but given that Netanyahu's probably making that call this evening, what do you think the reaction of the West will be to the new government?
I think the same reaction that was in the past for the same governments. I think they might criticize it. I'm not sure it's something that I can be the person to answer it because I'm not a public relations or an international expert. But I think that in the past, to other Netanyahu governments, there was not a very good reaction. I don't see a reason why it will be different now.
Thank you. Is there any official opposition leader as of now?
It's an interesting question. Today I met two people from the Labour Party. And they don't, I mean, I can't answer this question because it won't be fair to anyone from their camp, from Yair Lapid camp and Michaeli camp. They saying that Yair Lapid is not the leader of the camp, but if you ask someone from Yesh Atid, they will say Yair Lapid is the leader of the camp. For sure, if there is leader of the camp, it will be Yair Lapid. But the answers are different from different party to the other. And obviously there is a lot of politics. Benny Gantz and Yair Lapid are not best friends. Lieberman and Yair Lapid, there was a black cat between them during the fight with the committee of the teachers right before the elections. Lieberman was tougher than Yair Lapid, and there was argument between them. Michaeli and Lapid obviously are not friendly to each other because he blames her for losing the elections and she blames him. So it's very tricky, like in every camp. But this is the situation.
Thank you. Merdad Kansari asks, is the ongoing protests in Iran helping Netanyahu's position vis-a-vis the U.S., especially as there is a reluctance on the part of the Europeans to resume JCPOA talks?
I don't know. Regarding Iran, I am just hearing what you are hearing. I don't know if I'm sure that Israel is looking at the protest and seeking ways to use it, but I'm not sure how and what, if they're planning to do something. I had a chance to talk with Yaakov Nagel, which was the head of the Malal, the Center for National Security. And he said that it's not a secret. He also talked about it in the news. He said that he thinks that this government will try to be more aggressive about Iran. I don't know what it means. If it means acting militarily or maybe international arenas, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm the person to talk about it.
Great, thank you. So Jack Wasserman asks, what will happen to or with Ayelet Shaked?
I don't know. I heard this week that she enlisted to the Likud to be someone that can vote in the Likud and to choose people. Maybe it means that she inspired to gain back her political career in the future in the Likud.
Thank you. And Barak Korkmaz expands upon our earlier question about Gantz. Do you think that Gantz can balance the far right effect on the Netanyahu government? And would he be a defense minister? And if yes, what would Ben-Gvir and Smotrich do then?
I don't think Gantz will be defense minister, as it seems for today, Yoav Gallant is going to be the defense minister. As I said before, I don't think Gantz, if he will join, it won't be now, because the voters of the camp of Netanyahu wouldn't be wouldn't like it. And I think Netanyahu, even if he wants to balance the government, at least in the beginning, he will try to satisfy his voters and maybe then invite Gantz for the government. It will be interesting to see if it happens and how, if Gantz goes along with all his party or not. But again, it's something that I don't see it happening in the near future, maybe in a few months, a year, I don't know. It very much depends on how this government will work together, and I don't know how they will work together, so I can't really tell.
Thank you so much. One last question on Gantz there. Do you think that he didn't release the body because he couldn't secure an exchange, like you mentioned?
Maybe they couldn't secure an exchange because the body of the prisoner will go to the PLO, and the bodies of the soldiers are in Gaza, in the hands of Hamas. So maybe it's related. I don't know. In the eyes of the families of the victims, it doesn't matter, because in their eyes, what matters is that the bodies won't be released and that the Palestinians won't celebrate. So that was the main concern for these families. I'm not sure what was really Gantz's concerns or what he thought about.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Murray Feldman, so we had the recent article about Israel needing to take over the Temple Mount. Do you agree? And what are your thoughts on that article that came out?
I think the Temple Mount is a symbol to Israel's sovereignty. It's interesting because I just saw a message of Jordan saying that it expects the new government to keep the status quo in Temple Mount. I don't think Israel will do something extreme about Temple Mount. It didn't do before under Netanyahu governments or any government. But I think Temple Mount is definitely a symbol for Israel's sovereignty.
Absolutely. And before we go, we started off this webinar talking about the laws that the new coalition is trying to get passed. As of now, where do they stand and what are those laws specifically?
The laws, as I said, are the law that giving Itamar Ben-Gvir more power over the police. It's a law that will enable Smotrich to be Minister of Finance, but also have control over the Kogat. And a law that will enable Aryeh Deri, from the head of Shas, to be minister. I think I mentioned all the laws which are under discussion or debate. I think, yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, we've heard those. I was just making sure we haven't missed any new ones coming out. All right. Well, thank you so much. We've come to the close of our webinar and podcast. Naveh, thank you so much for taking time to update us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. For our viewers and listeners, please join us Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern with Emmanuel Atalengi discussing Iranian operations in Latin America. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.